I was very fascinated by this book when I read it as well, because this book is not about any famous people. It's 36 stories about just very ordinary people in Tianjin, but they all have some amazing skills. So by now, many of you might be very interested in knowing how this book actually reads. How does this book actually sound? Does it sound like does it have a very heavy Tianjin flavor in it? So therefore, we actually prepared a book reading session for you. Our editor, Matthew Keeler, has handpicked one of the stories, Master Li, the Paint Slinger. And I'm going to invite one of our attendees today to read it. That's Michelle Pennington. Yeah, and Nisha, hi, thank you. Could you read would you be able to read part of the English story for us, please?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Okay. Master Li, the paint slinger, worked for a builder's out on Hebei Avenue. His job was working with whitewash, and that was all he did. If he was painting a room for you, you didn't need to swathe the place in sheets. Just leave everything sitting there, and it would all be beautiful. The really amazing thing was that he always wore black when he was slinging his paint, but when he finished, there wasn't so much as a speck on him. You'd better believe this was true. He'd made a rule about this. He wouldn't charge for whitewashing if he'd got any paint on himself. If he couldn't keep the paint off his clothes, he'd have starved to death long ago, wouldn't he? That was the story at any rate. Not everyone believed it. People who didn't know anything about the business and who'd never seen the man in action didn't believe it. Other painters angrily insisted that it couldn't possibly be true. One day, Master Li, the paint slinger, took on an apprentice called Cao Xiaosan. As an apprentice, his job was to make the tea, light cigarettes, and follow along behind carrying any equipment that might be needed. Cao Xiaosan had heard all about his master's amazing skill, and he wasn't quite sure he believed it. This time, he was going to see for himself. Now that day, which was his first out working with the master, they were going to be painting a Western-style house on Dennan Road in the English concession, which had just been built by Li Shanren. When they arrived, Master Li went and chatted to the site manager. You could see the master got a lot of respect from those in the know. He would only paint one room per day. Now this house had 9 rooms, so he'd been working there for 9 days. Before starting work, he opened up the square case he was carrying. Sure enough, he was going to be wearing a black jacket and black trousers, and even a pair of black cloth shoes. When he was dressed in his black work clothes, he was ready to deal with a bucket of whitewash at his feet. Now in a room, you have a ceiling and 4 walls, and you paint the ceiling first and then the walls. Now ceilings are very difficult to paint when a brush thick with whitewash is being lifted up. How can anyone avoid drips? And when it drips, the drops land on the paint slinger. When Master Li was on the other end of the brush, the paint stayed put. The brush touched the ceiling, and immediately it turned white, smooth and even, snowy and pure. Now, some people said it was all in the handling of the brush. Others, that he mixed his paint to a secret recipe. Cao Xiaosan had no idea how to explain it. He saw the master's arm moving slowly back and forth, as regular as a metronome, as calmly as if he was moving to music. And every time he raised the brush, the paint-covered bristles were slapped against the wall with a satisfying pop sound. Pop, pop, pop. One stroke after another, covering the surface evenly and without gaps, until the walls were as white as snow. However, Cao Xiaosan was more interested in whether or not there was any paint on Master Li. When Master Li was working, he had a particular custom. Every time he finished a wall, he would sit down for a bit on a stool, smoking a pack of cigarettes and drinking a cup of tea, and only afterwards would he tackle the next wall. Then Cao Xiaosan took advantage of the fact that he had to pour the tea and light the cigarettes to get a really good look at Master Li's clothes. Every time he finished a wall, he would inspect him. But from start to finish, he couldn't find as much as a speck of paint on him. In all of those black clothes, he found the master a deeply awe-inspiring sight. But when Master Li finished painting the last wall and sat back down, and Tao Xiaosan came and lit his cigarette, he saw a spot of white on his trousers, about the size of a pea. White on black is so much more eye-catching than black on white. Damn! All of these stories weren't holding up to scrutiny. There's nothing special about him at all, and the towering image built up in the tales told of him were crumbling. However, he was worried about making his master look bad, so he didn't dare to say anything. He didn't even dare to look at him. But he couldn't stop himself from glancing at the spot. Now, just at that moment, Master Li suddenly spoke. Xiaosan, you've noticed the spot of white on my trousers, haven't you? You think I didn't earn my reputation? That it's all a trick, don't you? Silly boy, come here and have a good look. And as he spoke, Master Li pinched the fabric of his trousers in his fingers and lifted it slightly, and the white spot immediately disappeared. When he let go again, the white spot was back. Huh, how odd. He looked again, and at this time he realized the white spot was a hole in the fabric. He must just carelessly burned a small hole with cigarette ash. His white underpants were showing through the hole, and it looked just like a spot of whitewash that had landed on him. Master Li looked at Tao Xiaosan, standing there dumbfounded. Ha! He laughed and said, do you think I got my reputation for nothing? Don't fool yourself. You have a hell of a lot to learn. On his first day as an apprentice, Tao Xiaosan saw things and learned things that other people would take a lifetime to understand. Thank you, guys.
Oh, thank you. That is so lovely.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
such a good storyteller, Michelle. And I also really like this type of stories because they always have this kind of surprise ending. And in all the 36 stories, they all kind of have this kind of a surprise at the end. And if you want to find out more, obviously you should go buy the book and read it all. But now, for those, I don't know how many Chinese friends today are with us. Today, so let's we have actually invited a Tianjin人today, who's Xue Ning here, and yeah, my friend Xue Ning here, and she's from Tianjin, and she's going to actually read us the Chinese script in Tianjin dialect. So to just give you the original flavor of the Chinese text. I try to share the screen here with the Chinese text for everyone who can read Chinese to understand. Xinyi, would you like to start? Oh, let me see if I, just a second, sorry. Xinyi, would you like to unmute yourself? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you can start, Xinyi.
Yeah, I need on the screen.
Oh, you need a screen. Okay, 1 second.
But otherwise, I can find on my phone but it's better on the screen.
Yeah, let me just share it.
I saw that just now.
Yeah, sorry, just 1 second. Something.
I don't mind, I can read on my phone.
Yeah, why don't you start and I'll try to find it
Yeah,
as you go. Sorry about that.
Right. Okay, it's my great honor to read part of the story in the Tianjin accent because I'm coming in the same hometown with Feng Jicai. Right, okay, the story is 刷子李是河北大街一家营造厂的师傅，专干粉刷一行，别的不干。他要是给您刷好一间屋子，屋里人马奔放，单坐着就像升天一般美。最别不叫绝的是，他刷浆时必穿一身黑， 干完活身上绝没有一个白点儿。别不信，他还给自己立下一个规矩，只要身上有白点儿，白刷不要钱。倘若没这一本事，他不早饿成干儿了。但这是传说，人信也不会全信，行外的没见过的不信，行内的生气愣说不信。一年的一天，刷子里收了个徒弟叫曹小三儿。当徒弟的开头都是端茶点烟儿，跟在屁股后边提东西。曹小三儿当然早就听说过师傅那手绝活，一直半信半疑，这回非要亲眼瞧瞧。那天头一次跟师傅出去干活，到英租界镇南道给李善人新造的洋房刷浆。到了那儿，刷子里跟随管事的人一谈，才知道师傅派头十足。照他的规矩，一天只刷一间屋子，这洋楼大小9间屋，得刷9天。干活前，他把随身带的一个四四方方的小包裹打开了，果然一身黑衣黑裤，一双黑布鞋。穿上这身黑，就再跟地上一桶白浆浇上了劲。一间屋子，一个屋顶4面墙，先刷屋顶后刷墙。顶子尤其难刷，沾了稀溜溜粉浆的板刷往上一举，谁能一滴不掉？一掉准掉在身上。可刷子里一举刷子，就算没沾浆，但刷子划过屋顶，立时匀匀实实一道白，白的透亮，白的清爽。有人说，这沾浆的手臂悠然摆去，悠然摆去，好在伴着鼓点儿，和着琴音儿。每一白刷，那长长的带浆的毛便在墙面啪的一声脆响，极是好听。啪啪声里一道道浆衔接的天衣无缝，刷过去的墙面真好比平平整整打开一面雪白的屏障。可是呢，曹小三最关心的还是刷子里身上到底有没有白点儿。刷子里干活还有个规矩，每刷完一面墙啊，必得在凳子上坐一大会儿，抽袋烟，喝碗茶，再刷下一面墙。此刻曹小三儿借着给师傅倒水点烟的机会，拿目光仔细搜索刷子里的全身。每一面墙刷完，他搜索一遍，居然连一个芝麻大小的粉点也没发现。他真觉得这身黑色的衣服有种神圣不可侵犯的尊严了。可是呢，当刷子里刷完最后一面墙坐下来，曹小三给他点烟时，竟然瞧见刷子里裤子上出现一个白点儿，黄豆大小，黑中白，比白中黑更扎眼。完了，师傅露馅儿了，他不是神仙呐！往日传说中那如山般的形象轰然倒去了。但他怕师傅难看，不敢说，也不敢看，可防不住呢，还要扫一眼。这时候，刷子里忽然朝他说话：“三儿哎，你瞧见我裤子上的白点儿了吧？你以为师傅的能耐有假，名气有诈是吧？傻小子，你再细瞧瞧吧。”说着，刷子里手指捏着裤子轻轻往上一提，那白点即刻没了。再一松手，白点又出现了。奇了！他凑上脸用绳再瞧，那白点啊，原来是一个小洞。刚才抽烟时啊，不小心烧的。 里边的白衬裤打小洞透出来了，看上去就跟粉浆捞上去的白点一模一样。刷子里看着曹小三儿发怔发愣的模样，笑道：“你以为人家的名气全是虚的？那你在骗自个儿，好好学本事吧。”曹小三儿学徒弟头一天，见到、听到、学到的，恐怕别人一辈子也未准明白呢。完了。
Thank you so much, 雪宁。